I will be forever the myth.
You're the king of kings, man.
There's always a pecking order. The little packers never mess with the big packers. So I'm a rooster, and he's a chicken, so to speak.
All right, welcome back to the Bodybuilding Legends Podcast. I have a very special guest with me this week, Mr. Steve Brisbois, who was a pro bodybuilder in the 1990s. So we're going to talk to Steve about his career. How you doing, Steve?
I'm doing fantastic, John. Thanks for having me on, man. It's such a pleasure.
My pleasure having you on. So, Steve, we always start at the beginning. Why don't you give us some background on when you started lifting weights and what made you decide to become a bodybuilder?
So, I started weight training in 1982.
Okay.
I come from a small mining town up in Canada. It's actually happens to be one of the largest gold mining municipalities in the entire world. People don't know.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's half the town works in the gold mines and the mines up there, man. And
okay.
Ore and nickel and gold and stuff like that. But
is it still like that, Steve?
Sorry?
Is it still like that? Still a lot of mining? Oh, really?
Yep.
Wow.
It's big. Mining's big in my hometown.
Wow.
A lot of people still work there. They have, at the time, they had the largest open pit in the world when I left.
Holy cow.
And, but it was a party town. I grew up partying, drinking, doing drugs and the whole 9 yards. And, I got into a little bit of trouble here and there. And I was in my, I was 20, whatever age I was at 82, 20 something years old, I think 22. I had enough or something happened. I went to the gym one day with a friend of mine. He was going there. I messed around in high school, wrestling and stuff like that, man. Nothing serious.
Yeah.
Well, I went to the gym and had my first workout ever that was isolated workout we did bench, we did chest.
Yeah.
Not knowing anything about how the body works for that. So we did, chest and all that stuff, man. I was there probably for about an hour or so.
Mm-hmm.
The next day when I woke up, I said, okay, something is not right. I had a soreness I've never had in my life.
Right.
And it hit me right away that, wow, this is something is unique here. I was absolutely amazed on what I felt.
Yeah.
And for me, it was a turning point because I went back the next day. When I woke up that morning and I felt that way, I said, okay, I'm going back. And I did. And when I went back, there was some guys in there. It was a really hardcore powerlifting gym in my hometown. And then I had some of the guys show me some things, and I ended up doing buys and tries or something that day. And of course, the next day, the same thing. I had this soreness. I'm like, what am I doing? Am I stupid or what?
Right.
But I ended up going to the store and buying all these magazines and reading things and realized, wow, man. So I was nonstop. But
did you know anything about bodybuilding before that?
Sorry?
Did you know anything about bodybuilding before that?
Not a thing.
Okay.
All I knew was Johnny Atlas kicking sand or punches
right.
old sand cover or
right.
in the magazines, whatever.
Yeah.
It was 9 months after I started, John. I entered my first contest at my bunch of my friends in the gym said, "Come on, Steve, let's go to Toronto, man." Toronto's 500 miles north of my hometown.
Uh-huh.
I said, I'm having fun. It was about 6 weeks prior to the contest. And I was already looking pretty good shape. I'm like, I adapted really quick. Keeping in mind that in my, when I was 14, 15, and 16, I was a competitive diver and swimmer. I was the Northern Ontario springboard diving champion. And so I had some athletic background. I played hockey. I was pretty good at it for a while, man, but I was too short to get into the board with some of these guys, man. But I was 6 weeks away from the contest, and I said, man, so I just looked at everything in the magazines and dialed down. And I'll never forget what my dad said to me one day, because here I am in the middle of the living room. I take the mirror off the wall, and I put the mirror in the right place in the living room so I can pose in it.
Yeah.
And my dad's looking at me, and I've disappointed him many times in my life. And he goes, it was kind of a little funny comment about, doing something, again, just to waste your time or whatever. I forget how he said it, but it wasn't really insulting to me because I think he thought I was just doing nothing.
Yeah.
So when I ended up preparing for the contest, went to the show, and there had to be 2,000 people in the audience in Toronto. It was my first contest. I was nervous and I'll get out, man, and just walked on stage and I won it. I said, holy.
You won. Wow.
What the hell's going on? It's unbelievable. So from that point, I ended up competing a couple more times that year, and that was 1983.
Okay.
And then 84 came along, and from that point in 84, I climbed the ladder in Canada, and I was like this up-and-coming bodybuilder. And then all of a sudden in 84, I qualified for the Canadian Championships in 85, and then I went to the Canadian Championships.
Wow.
And this whole time, I was completely drug-free.
Yeah.
And
now, did you respond pretty quickly, Steve? Did your body grow pretty fast?
Absolutely. I was amazed at, because I had people in my hometown look at me walking around town here and there. Everybody knows everybody, right? And I would have some feedback coming to me about, hey, Steve, I heard all these guys talking about you, man. What the hell's going on here? And they look at me and say, wow, what are you doing, man? You look amazing. I can't believe the size you're putting on. And it was a great compliment, right? And I just, so I just, in the Canadian Championships in 85, I was the up and coming new bodybuilder of the country. And I had a lot of fans at the time, which I'm like, oh man, this is pretty interesting.
Yeah.
So I lose the lightweight division by 1 point.
Wow.
I'm like, okay, I was disappointed because I thought the only thing I wanted to do was go to the universe.
Yeah.
And the story behind that, John, is in 85, it was the first time I had ever taken a dose of steroids.
Okay.
And I took them for about 3 to 4 weeks. And I did not like what they did. I felt I didn't know what I was doing.
Yeah.
And I just took some, and I got off for like 2 weeks before the contest or something. So I didn't like this stuff. I still thought I was decent, but I could tell that I wasn't as hard as I should have been.
So it was holding water.
I was holding, and I realized that, the steroids did a little bit of it, but I still thought I was in good shape to win the contest. But at the athletes meeting before the contest, the Canadian promoter comes up to us and says, he sits all the athletes down and says, look, next year we're taking a team to the Tokyo Mr. Universe, and it's going to be the first drug-tested Mr. Universe ever in Tokyo, Japan in 1986. So he said that we're taking a natural bodybuilding team, and then anybody that's going to want to go, you're going to have to sign an affidavit because we want you to complete the drug-free because you're going to be tested. If you're caught with drugs, you're going to have a big fine. So I'm thinking, okay, I start talking to all the guys after the Canadian Championships who's going next year, and I go to find out that most of these guys, all they care about is just winning the Canadian Championships, and they were going to stick onto their steroids.
Oh, they didn't care about going to the World Championships.
Sorry?
They didn't care about going to the World Championships. They just wanted to go to the Canadian.
It was very odd to me at the time because they thought that maybe they could get away with it or something, and they didn't realize it was serious. But so I ended up training the entire year, just balls to the walls. I put my head in the dirt, and I was so focused, man. And the one thing I did not do is I did not step on the scale throughout this whole time.
Okay.
And I weighed 154 in 1985 lightweight championships in Canada, which is 154 and under.
Yeah.
So I did 154. So I ended up going to Vancouver a year later, and come time for weigh-in, and I was shredded, John. I was so shredded. I thought, wow, man. The only thing I thought about, I don't care if I win. It didn't matter to me. I want to go to the universe, man. That was my goal. Yeah. And so we're all preparing backstage and stuff like that. Well, I'm weighing in, I should say. I'm going for the weigh-in. And the actual guy who was promoting the show at the time was named Calvin Naiuli. He actually placed third to me the year prior in the Canadian Championships.
Who won in 85, Steve? Was that Jean LeBlanc?
John, yeah. No, Ray Bollier.
Ray Bollier, okay. Yeah. Lightweight.
And he was my roommate. And I'll tell you what happened to him.
Okay.
So we get there, and I decide to we're in the weigh-in, and I'm weighing in, and I step on the scale, and I look down. I said, you got to be kidding me. My shape was like, I loved how I looked. I was in phenomenal shape, and I'm looking down. It's okay, something's not right here. I weighed in 143 pounds.
Wow.
So I'm like 10 pounds lighter. And I said, wow, I was almost devastated. And Calvin said, Steve, that's fantastic. You can go bantamweight.
Yeah.
And I said, no, I'm not doing that. I'm going lightweight because I want to go to the champ. I lost the last year by a point. I'm going lightweight. And realizing that I didn't care if I wanted to go back to lightweight.
Yeah.
I hop in a lightweight class at 143 pounds.
Well, they let you go lightweight at 143?
I could have gone heavyweight if I wanted to. So he didn't have a choice. He goes, Steve, you're crazy giving up that kind of weight. I said, I don't care, Calvin. I'm going to I'm going to train. I'm going to compete in lightweight.
Okay.
So lo and behold, bantamweights go on stage, then lightweights go on, and I think you're going to appreciate this, John. It's I get on stage, and we all come out the one at a time to see the judges looking at us, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know how that goes. Each bodybuilder does their pose, and then back in line. Okay, now they take all the comparisons. I stood there, never got compared one time. Not once. I was devastated. I'm thinking, okay, not only did I not get compared, they're not going to pick me for the universe. I mean, I thought I was going to cry on stage. I really thought I was going to break down. I said, I didn't know what's going on.
Right.
So we're done. I go backstage, and I'm sitting on this chair. My head's down, man. I'm feeling so deflated. Like, what the hell happened? And I got a buddy who comes backstage. He looks at me. He sees me sitting down. He goes, hey, you shake me, Steve. What the hell's wrong with you? I said, did you see what happened? He goes, yeah. I said, they didn't call me out. He goes, they didn't need to. I said, hang on. This is unheard of. What are you talking about, man? He said, they didn't need to call you up, man. They were just judging second on down. I said, you got to be kidding me.
Wow. No shit.
Let's go. Let's go on the audience. It was amazing because we went to the, as you go on the audience after, people start congratulating you.
Right.
Even though
you
haven't won yet.
Right.
And I'm shaking hands with people. Are like, at that point, I said, wow, I might win this.
Yeah.
So lo and behold, they win the lightweight division in a bantamweight. And so I'm like, all right, I'm going to the universe. Like that was the biggest moment of my life to know that. But what happened after that is so now, as you know, they have the overall championships, right?
Right.
So we're all on stage, and I'm just having a good time up there, man. I'm already going to the universe, man. I'm just out there just having a good time, packed with people in the audience, man. And so all of a sudden, the judge, the promoter goes, okay, ladies and gentlemen, what a fantastic big night for this gentleman. The overall Canadian champion in 1986 is Steve. Unbeknownst to me, which I forgot, the heavyweight guy was named Steve. So he started jumping up and down.
Oh, no.
I clapped my hands for him looking over because I'm like, good for him, man.
Yeah.
And then he called my last name out.
Yeah.
And when he called my last name, I was absolutely shocked. And the audience went berserk.
Wow, no shit.
The ceiling almost came off, man. I said, I couldn't believe what just happened.
Yeah. And that was the first time a lightweight ever won the Canadian Championships.
It was to be honest with you, John, in the history of the world, I'm the only bodybuilder at a bantamweight weight to ever win their overall national championship.
Yeah. Holy shit. Unbelievable.
So it was a milestone for me.
It hasn't happened in any other country.
Never. I looked all these years. And one bantamweight. I couldn't even find a lightweight who won the overall championship.
Yeah. I couldn't think of a lightweight either. Yeah.
But it was amazing. But it was fun. So we fly 3 days later to Tokyo. And I'm on stage with, 20 guys maybe. Now this time here, I drop down.
Okay.
Right? Because this is international, right?
Yeah.
I can drop down to the bantamweight division, and I'm on stage with all these guys. And I kid you not, John, I was called up. I think it was 12 times in a row. Every single judge from whatever country they came from called their guy, some other guy, and me. Always me and two other guys. I'm like, holy. So there was one time, I think about that 12th time, I'm walking on stage and I'm looking like this, and I look at the judge, and he goes, puts his hand and says, okay. He knew I had enough, man.
Yeah, right.
So anyway, I had won that, and that was October '86.
Yeah. How did that feel, Steve?
I still think of those memories and what I went through being there and all that, being in Tokyo, and it was an amazing feeling, man. And I thought, okay, this is great, man. I got some things going on in this sport. I'm gonna think about doing something. So when I get back to Canada and all that, I was really good friends with Robert Kennedy. I don't know if you remember him.
Oh yeah, for sure, absolutely.
Muscle Mag. He was only 10 minutes from where I lived. And I used to go see him all the time, man. He was such an awesome gentleman, man. And Steve Douglas was the photographer, was a good friend of mine. He took a lot of pictures for me and all that. But when I came back and did all these photo shoots with Robert Kennedy in the magazine and all that, within like weeks, and first thing he said was, "Hey, Steve, you got to go pro." I said, "Yeah, you think?" He goes, "Yep." He goes, "You got what it takes, man." He goes, "I know you're light now, but put some mass on, go pro."
Yeah.
But now when he said that, John, you know exactly what I had to do, right?
Drugs, yeah.
Yeah, and I didn't hesitate at this time. I talked to many people. I had done my research.
Yeah.
I knew there was a little bit of something that was going to scare me a bit. Now, before I go there, before turning pro, let me back up to what happened with a point I forgot when bodybuilding. See, when I was in my early 20s, before I went to the gym and became a bodybuilder, I actually had a kidney disease.
Oh, really? Okay.
So it was another indication for me to do something different in my life, or just something that happened to me. And I'll never forget that, because it stuck with me for a long time. And I had to go to the special hospital in Toronto on my 19th birthday and found out I had a disease called glomerular nephritis. And basically it's a blood vessels in the kidneys that would burst open no matter what. Nobody knew what it was. But years later, I go to find out it had everything to do with diet. And I was on a very horrible eating plan before I got into bodybuilding in my hometown. I ate massive amounts of those terrible prepared luncheon meats with all those little things inside of it, man.
Yeah, right.
We grew up on that stuff, fried bologna, milk by the gallons every day. And years later, I go to find out one of the reasons I had that disease is because there's a concentrated source of unnatural protein going into my blood, and my kidneys couldn't take it.
Oh, wow.
And so that was a real excellent milestone for me to discover that. And it got me on my path even more as a nutritionist, a self-taught nutritionist.
Yeah.
I teach a lot of people that.
How old were you, Steve, when you got this?
I was 19. Well, I had it when I was just coming out of high school at 18.
Okay.
And I basically what was going on, John, I would go to the bathroom and I'd urinate pure blood all the time.
Wow.
And it's been on for about 2 years, and I never said anything to my mom.
Oh shit.
So I finally said something to her living at home, because she worked for a doctor, and we had these tests done and went to Toronto and all this stuff. But I'll never forget the day that I think it was right before I went in the gym for the first time with my good friend, and his name was Wayne, man. Still a friend of mine to this day.
Okay.
And I went up to my mom probably weeks before that, and I had these antibiotics. And I said, "Hey, Mom, I'm not taking these ever again." And she goes, "Well, you're going to have to, because you might have some problems with the kid." I said, "Nope." I said, "I'm going to throw these out, and I'm going to start learning how to eat right." Not knowing 2 weeks later or so, I was going to the gym with my friend.
Wow.
And I did. I dug into some health and nutrition at the time, and then I got into bodybuilding.
Okay.
So I never had a recurring bout with that. I was good on it. I felt very confident. And then when I was ready after the university to go pro and take the drugs, one of the things that a lot of guys don't do when they take these steroids is they don't really look at all the paperwork. And I did.
Yeah.
And one of the contraindications on all the steroids that you take today is contraindications glomerular nephritis, which is something I had.
Right.
And I was a little afraid, but I realized my diet was good. And I said, you know what? I'm not going to go crazy. And I didn't. I took small doses, but I went from October 86 to May of 1987 to the Night of Champions. I went from 143 to 165 pounds, John.
20 pounds. Wow.
and like from October to May.
Yeah. Wow.
And that was my first pro show, where I ended up placing 9th. And we're talking all the stars were there, man. Night of Champions, Wayne DeMilia's show, and I'm on stage with all these guys, and the magazines come out later on, and they say the next giant killer. It's like, wow.
Oh, really?
Man.
Wow.
So that's how I kind of got going with that, and so from that point on, I went to the.
How did that feel going to the Night of the Champions, Steve?
It was awesome. It was. I wish I would have prepared the same way for the Olympia, but I didn't. Because I went to the Olympia that year too. Because don't forget, Mr. Universe
automatically gets an invite, right?
Yeah, and I ended up doing dead last. What was that? There was a drug out. It was, I forget what it was called, Essaclean or something like that.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
And I put it on my shoulders and they swelled. And you can tell in the '87 Olympia how I looked, and I could tell my shoulders, they weren't separated here. So I made a mistake, but.
The judges marked you down for that?
Sorry?
The judges marked you down for that because they could see your
shoulder? Yeah, and although I thought I was decent shape, I wasn't shape enough to compete against these guys. I saw that, I realized it. Well, what I could say is in the Night of Champions, I was way better. I knew what I did then, and I kind of switched some things, thinking, the Olympia is a bigger show, but knowing that there was a lot of the same guys there, and I could have done the same thing, but and I made that mistake, which was fine.
Who's gonna tell you when it's too late? Who's gonna tell you things aren't so great? You can't go on thinking nothing's wrong. Who's gonna drive you home tonight? Who's gonna pick you up when you fall? Who's gonna hang it up
lo and behold, over the next couple of years, I started, making a name for myself. And then I got invited to the Arnold Classic in 1990, where I placed fifth.
So that first night of the champions, I got the list here. That was the one Gary Stridham won in 87.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, awesome gentleman, by the way, man. I remember I was standing there when I was there, John, backstage, and a lot of these guys come in. I'll never forget. Gary Stridham was one of the first guys to come and greet me. Shane DeMora.
Yeah.
He came over and he was really super greeting me really nice. I felt like the guys then, it's like, oh man, it's family, right?
Yeah.
There's a few other guys, I forget who was who, but it was a great feeling, man, to meet these guys backstage and stuff. Oh, and the story for the Night of Champions, John, was that when I called Wayne DeMillia to let him know, look, I want to turn pro after the Mr. Universe, and he says, Steve, I think you're making a mistake because you're going to give away a lot of weight. I said, well, I basically have that decision, right? He goes, yeah. I said, okay. He goes, well, I just want you to know, man, it's you can have a tough time at it at your size. He said, all right.
Yeah.
So he kind of, it was like almost like a little dig. I know he did it that way because Wayne DeMillia is a great guy, man.
Yeah.
But when I went to the Night of Champions, I actually saw him the week before in Toronto because there was a couples championship.
Okay.
As a matter of fact, I competed in that with Erica Mess.
Right. You weren't planning to do that, right?
No, she just needed a partner. I went in. We ended up doing, I don't know, 5th or 6th together, but she wasn't really in the right shape. And it was okay. It didn't matter.
So you were just going to see it and she was there and she needed a partner?
They all came to our gym, everybody that trained.
Oh, okay.
Gold's Gym was the biggest gym in town. It was close to the and everything. So all the girls were coming in and all of a sudden they knew me and they said, hey, look, Steve, Erica wants you to compete with her. I said, sure. And then I saw Wayne at the show. Wayne goes, hey, Steve, good for you, man. I see you're eating a lot of chicken.
Now, Erica was from Holland, right?
What's that?
Erica was from Holland, right?
Yep.
Okay. So how did that go doing the couples? Did you guys have enough time to get a routine together and stuff?
We put a routine together really fast.
Mm-hmm.
Keeping in mind that my posing, John, was and with all due respect to everybody else, I was a little more above people in a way that when I won the Universe, one of the journalists said that my posing was one of the greatest in the world, if not the best ones in the world, even with the pros.
Wow.
So, and I still have that caption here, man. Matter of fact, I sent the picture of that to Ian and Big Naz not too long ago about that, man.
Uh-huh. How did you learn to pose?
I just started. I used to watch Muhammad Makawi.
Oh, okay.
And I saw his graceful posing, and I incorporated a little bit of that style and put my own into it. And I ended up putting together our Canadian routine for the Universe. For the
team posing. Yeah.
Team pose. And we won that too.
Did you really? Wow.
Yeah.
No kidding.
Oh, and by the way, I forgot to tell you about Ray Bollier. Ray Bollier was my roommate at the time, and he got caught for the steroids at the Universe.
Oh, okay. So he was a lightweight.
Yeah, he came in there and competed too.
So he got kicked out. He couldn't compete in the Universe because he got caught with steroids.
He was gonna go lightweight. I was bantamweight, and he couldn't compete because he got caught, man. And it was kind of a tough situation for him, man. But
how did they do the testing, Steve, at the Universe? Were they testing everybody, or was it just random?
Yeah, no. What we did is that's a good question. What we stood in the room, each class went in this room. All the judges were on stage.
Okay.
And we all stood up and took our shirts off and kind of just walked up and walked back, something like that. And the judges, they couldn't do everybody. So the judges, in their eyes, were already seeing the best, right?
Oh, okay.
Top guy. So basically, they picked out, top. I think there was 5 or 6 or 7 guys in each category, maybe less.
And they tested them.
And what's his name was there? Goldman.
Bob Goldman, yeah.
Yeah, because he was part of that back in the day, man. And
so you guys weren't on stage; you were just in a room, and all the judges were there. And then you just had to take your shirts off or your posing trunks, and you walked in front of the judges, and then they picked out six guys.
Yeah, and they picked out the guys they thought that needed to be tested, and we did that. And then the testing came back like the next day, and then that's when they determined 2 guys that got caught, and Ray was one of them. So. That's what happened with all that stuff, man. But, going pro and after that and competing and with all these guys in Night of Champions. That was a whole different story after that, man.
What song did you pose to at the Night of Champions?
Gosh. That goes so many years ago.
There was one routine you did that was so good. It was such a good song. I can't think of the name of it now.
If I'm not mistaken, I don't know the song, but I'll never forget Mike Christian commenting in the audience. You know Mike Christian, right?
Yeah.
I could hear him yell at me, man, because he was talking about my pose and how fantastic it was, man. It was kind of like, it was interesting to hear.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just had a knack for posing, and I just knew how to put it together. That's why when I see guys today and girls pose, it's like, you got to put more into it, man.
Yeah.
Especially when I'm judging the show too, and I don't see the guys hold the poses enough. You can tell when people are not practicing, of course, right?
Yeah.
But no, I just had a real good knack for the pose and stuff in that, man, and I just loved just putting something together and moving to it and just flowing with the music and feeling it, you know. And most guys today is like, boom, boom, boom.
Terrible. Yeah.
Yeah, there's no flow. There's nothing, man. Give it up, Steve. Atlanta Miles. There you go. I knew it was something along that lines, man. Wow.
All right.
Atlanta Miles. I'm gonna have to get that song again and try to practice that routine.
Yeah. I was helping a guy with his routine, and I was trying to get him to pose to that song because I'm helping a few guys from the gym or like local guys, and they'll come to me. I think they're hearing that I can help people with routines, and I'm pretty good at it, you know, with posing because I was decent at posing too. I mean, way better than these guys are now. You know.
Oh, I don't doubt that.
Yeah, I mean, I know how to do the transitions, and I know how to pick like the poses that look good in. And I keep telling them, I'm like, you got to have good music. And I don't know why, but all these young guys today are picking songs that don't have any lyrics. It's just instrumental. And I'm like, man, it's not going to work. I'm telling you, it's so much better with lyrics, you know. And I tried to get this young kid at the gym who had a nice physique. He's a little guy. He's only like 150 pounds, but he's got a really good physique. He got good legs. And when he, starts posing, he looks really good. He doesn't look small. And I tried to get him to pose to that song, Black Velvet. And he wouldn't do it. He's like, no, I like this song. And I'm like, oh, and it was okay. I mean, he moved well in the routine, but it just didn't have the impact,
That's good to hear, though, man. I mean, it's true. I've been through that before with some people, man.
Yeah, because when you have the lyrics, you can coordinate the poses to that.
Absolutely.
You can do like if it's a part of the song where it's like Whitney Houston is letting it out, and you can bring your arms up like Vince Taylor used to do that. I mean, the crowd goes nuts. It's just manipulating the audience in a way.
Absolutely, man. That's the way I love to do it, man. It was hey, and I think you're well aware as I am. There's only a few guys back in the day, even today. I don't even know if there's that many that used to be able to pose like that, man.
Yeah.
The rest of the guys they just kind of went through the routine. It was decent in that, but I can remember back then. There was myself. Lee Labrada was good. Sean Ray tended to have some good routines here and there. Of course, Vince Taylor, he was good.
Yeah.
I had to follow him in the Arnolds, which was a big mistake, man. Although I still placed fifth, but following him and listening to Arnold's comments, man, it's like, ooh, that hurt, but it's okay.
Just take everything out of you, don't they?
Yeah, he's exhausted, but feeling good.
And our final competitor, Steve Brisbois. Now, Arnold has to be very difficult to follow such a great routine as we just saw from Vince Taylor.
It is a nightmare for a guy like him, let me tell you. First of all, because he's a shorter fellow, he's a smaller fellow, and then on top of it, who is going to follow a posing routine like that? So you really have a big disadvantage to follow a guy like Vince Taylor. I think that he's struggling right now, Steve. He's struggling right now to get that audience attention because it has somewhat of an influence on the judges when the audience is screaming. Beautiful back, wonderful pose.
Steve, not quite as animated as others, and I think the choreography and music is, to me, what separates the champion from that person that's going to come in second or third, Arnold, in addition to the physique.
Yeah, like I said earlier, the posing routine, the music, the theme that you pick, all has a lot to do with that, yes.
Okay, Steve Brisbois from Orlando, Florida.
This shows a perfect situation here where with one pose you show off the whole entire back. Here the calves and the upper back. And the arms, the triceps, everything. You can see everything in this pose.
You know what, guys? This is tiring. I need a nice, cold Canadian beer.
As you can see, even a relatively slow-paced routine takes its toll on these athletes. And posing, of course, is very demanding physically.
It is unbelievably demanding, yes. So I think he needs his beer.
May need a couple. Well, Brisbois was our final competitor in round 3, and now it's left in the hands of the judges to decide who will advance to the pose down. And we'll have that announcement when we return.
So let me take you back to that night of the champions. I want to talk. So I'm going to read off the guys who beat you. Like Stridham got first. Mike Ashley was second. Ron Love was third. Natashak was fourth. Robbie was fifth. Shane DeMora was sixth. Bertil Fox was seventh. David Hawk was eighth. And then you got ninth. So you beat out Tom Terwilliger, Roy Callender, Sean Jenkins. You beat Tony Pearson, Frank Richards, Scott Wilson. So you beat some really good guys, some real legends there.
Yeah, those are big names. I was excited to be on stage. I was floored that I ended up placing ninth in that.
Yeah.
And then there was the next year, I think it was, where I placed sixth.
In the night of the champions?
Yeah, and I was 1 point away. I think Bob Paris took fifth.
Okay.
And I was 1 point away from getting, tying him or something like that, and which would have got me to the to the Olympia.
Okay.
That was in 91.
Oh, in 91.
Yes.
Okay.
I think it was 91 or was it 89? One or the other for Night of Champions, but I'll never forget that, man, because the magazines came out, talked about my placing in that, and I just missed the Olympia by 1 point or something like that, man.
Wow. Okay. So after that night of the champions, you went to the Olympia and you didn't do good. You got last place. How did it feel doing an Olympia? That was in Sweden, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Gothenburg. I enjoyed the time. I love the camaraderie. I love, being around all them people and going through that. But what a lot of people don't know, John, is from that point after the Miss Olympia, we had the Grand Prix tour, right?
Yeah. Did you do that?
And and it was the transformation I made within those 3 weeks after the Olympia was amazing because
Really? Huh.
there was a couple of guys came up to me. The judges had said some things because I ended up climbing up more and more and more.
Okay.
Because of all that.
Yeah.
And
so what happened? You just got harder as the Grand Prix?
I was very strict on the next couple of days and weeks as we were getting into each show, and I got tighter and tighter, harder and harder. I ended up coming up in some place. I forget where I placed them. You'll have to go back and look at them.
Yeah.
Did pretty decent. And I knew that I had what it took to make it. But
where were you getting your food from, Steve? I mean, because you guys are traveling, you're on the road, right? Every couple of days you were doing a show or something? Yeah.
Well, a lot of us would bring certain things, but then what happened was anytime we went somewhere on those tours, the restaurants, and there was always people catering to us, the hotels and that.
Okay.
They would have food ready for us. Some guys would bring, I remember one time, John Natashak bringing a 50-pound bag of rice with him, man. It was comical, to say the least, I tell you.
Well, it was funny back then before all the airline restrictions, in the 80s.
Right? You couldn't bring that on a plane now, man.
I talked to Lee Labrada, and he told me when he went to the Universe, which was in Sweden also in 85, he had a whole suitcase full of gallons of water.
You're kidding me, holy smokes.
And by the time he got there, he said all the gallons had exploded. The water was everywhere.
Of course, right up in the air like that, man.
Yeah, right.
Wow. Yeah, they catered to us. They took care of us in all these places. Okay. There was one place we went to, and I think the head of the hotel or somebody went in and really got mad at the chef because the chef was bringing out potatoes to us that had salt on it.
Oh, okay.
And we kind of all said something, no salt. And then he went in there and blasted him or something.
Yeah.
But we catered to
who won those Grand Prix? Was that Gaspari?
Gosh, I should go back and look at all this stuff, John. But there was a few guys.
I think the first one, Haney did it. I think that was in Germany, and Haney won, and Gaspari was second, Labrada was third, just same as the Olympia.
Yeah,
and Haney dropped out after the first one, so I was thinking probably Gaspari won.
Yep. Yeah, I'm glad you asked it because I'm gonna go back and look at the archives and see about those shows because I'm curious now.
Yeah.
Who was there times, man? But
So what happened
Yeah.
in 88, Steve? You went into the Niagara Falls and then you did the Night of the Champions again, right, in 88?
Yes. Okay. So coming up to 88, there was a point where I had to struggle a lot
Okay.
in bodybuilding because I don't know if you remember Ben Johnson.
Yeah, sure.
So Ben Johnson and I were pretty good friends. We trained at Gold's Gym.
Okay.
And he's, fastest runner in the world.
Yeah.
So Ben Johnson, I would always get in the gym, train. And I got to tell you, John, this guy's legs, Ben Johnson, he had bodybuilding legs.
Yeah.
They were massive. I mean, I used to watch this guy squat 400 pounds in Gold's Gym in the world's fastest run.
Wow.
Blew me away.
Yeah.
So I'll never forget that because him and I were friends. And then, and believe it or not, we used to meet sometimes at the doctor's office. And everybody knows that story because Dr. Astafan was our doctor. I met him through some guys, and Ben Johnson was part of that too.
Okay.
And we'd both be in the office. We'd go inside. It's like, okay, guys, come on in, Steve and Ben. We'd go there, lean over the desk, bring our pants down, give us each a shot. Okay, guys, you're good.
Yeah.
And then Ben gets caught that year, of course, as everybody knows.
Right.
And so confiscated the files from the doctor.
Oh, really?
And
Okay.
when they confiscated those files, my name's in there.
So what did they do?
They came to my door, and it wasn't anything major to the point where anybody's getting arrested.
Yeah.
But basically, the RCMP was kind of in charge of the investigation or something. And I got a knock on my door one night and opened the door, and this guy said, "Mr. Brisbois, I'm so-and-so with the RCMP." I said, "Okay, come on in."
What's the RCMP, Steve?
It's equivalent to, I guess, like an FBI down here, Royal Canadian Mounted.
Okay.
Pretty elite group of guys. It's a very elite form of, like, I don't know, maybe FBI or something. Maybe, I don't know, something like that. But they were in charge of the investigation. He said, "Look, I need you to come downtown and give us a testimony on this whole thing with Dr. Astafan and Ben Johnson." I said, and I was like a little nervous. Like, okay. He goes, "Nothing's going to happen. We just need to get your testimony."
Okay.
Sure. So I go downtown the next day and I gave my whole testimony about how I got my drugs and stuff. And he said, "Well, that's interesting, Mr. Brisbois, because the doctor said that you were supplying him with steroids." I said, "You got to be kidding me." So I was like, I couldn't believe what was happening. I didn't even know.
The doctor said you were supplying the doctor with steroids?
They had to try to point fingers.
Wow.
So that fell pretty fast. They knew that wasn't true. But then they had that whole inquiry in Canada called the Dublin Inquiry. You remember that?
Yeah, I do. I remember there was a big thing about that. Yeah.
And there was, as far as I know, there was 70-something witnesses, and only 2 of us got up there and basically just let our hearts out and spoke the truth. And I was one of them. And so was Ben's coach, I think Charlie Francis.
Yeah.
And so
so you really couldn't get in trouble for that, right, Steve? Because you were going to a doctor. It's not like you were getting illegal drugs or you were delivering drugs.
Yeah, I was getting to the doctor. So, but they were questioning me and asking me, "Where'd you get your steroids from?" I said, "Well," they knew I'd got them from Dr. Astafan. "Do you get them anywhere else? Can you get steroids anywhere else?" I said, "Yeah, I suppose you could." And the guy was questioning me, and I had a good friend of mine who was a lawyer. He was kind of representing me just in case. And he was shutting down this guy a lot of times, trying to ask me stupid questions.
Yeah.
And he said, "Well, okay, can you get drugs in most gyms in anywhere?" I said, "I suppose so." And then he caught me and he goes, "Can you get him at Gold's Gym?" I said, "I suppose so." Or something like that. And I trained at Gold's.
Oh, man.
And so, not even thinking, the inquiry was over for me. And then back in the day, this was completely live all over the world.
Wow. Yeah.
And so I go back to the gym that day, and I park and I walk up into the gym, and I see all these guys come out, and these were friends of mine. And believe it or not, all these guys were bouncers because they were personal friends. And I used to bounce for this big bar up the street, man. And they're all standing in front of the gym, and they're all like this with their hands crossed. I said, "What are you doing, Steve?" And I looked at them and I said, and I knew right away what was happening. I said, "Guys, look, I didn't mean to say Gold's Gym." Goes, "It doesn't matter. You can't train here anymore."
Oh, man.
And I had to scramble to find a place.
Yeah.
I needed to train for contests. I was devastated. And from that point on, my spirits and my training and everything, my training and stuff didn't suffer, but because my mind wasn't in the right place, I didn't prepare the way I should have. Yeah. And I was getting ready to do some really big things in 88 and 89. But you
probably had a lot of friends at the gym and everything, and then yeah. So
a friend of a friend had another place not too far. I mean, actually, it was pretty far in Toronto. I had to travel 40 minutes to get there every day and 40 minutes back. But
for those people that weren't around back then when this happened, I remember, because I had been in bodybuilding at that time, steroids were never really talked about in the main media. I mean, athletes knew what steroids were, but like the general public didn't know anything about steroids. No. And I remember when pumping iron came out, everybody thought those guys just looked like that because they worked out. Nobody thought bodybuilders were on steroids or anything. Right. So when Ben Johnson got caught, this made newspaper headlines across the world. Steroids. And like you said, he was a muscular guy. So everybody associated muscles with steroids. And then that one incident blew open this whole steroid thing. So like you said, they had this national inquiry and it was all over. It was live, like the OJ trial, and it was just a big deal.
It was a big deal. And they discovered obviously all this stuff going on in sports in Canada. And Canada wasn't the only place. Let's get it straight. I mean, Carl Lewis was taking this stuff too. Everybody knows that.
That's what I heard. Yeah.
And he just didn't get caught.
Yeah.
Ben, he was just, I know what he got caught for. He got caught for Winstrol because I was on the same drug.
How do you think he got caught? Did he just not get off it in time, or
didn't get off it in time?
Yeah.
And he was probably taking some other oil-based. As you know, Winstrol is water-based, so it's in and out a lot quicker.
But the oil
but I'm sure he was doing oil-based stuff that I didn't know. But he got caught.
I saw a documentary or something, and he was saying they put it in his beer can or a Coke can or something,
I was right there with him with our pants down. Hot, man.
Right.
Hey, I've never seen Ben for a long time. To this day, man, I still consider him a great person. But I want to be honest.
I think he was claiming that he was off it in time to pass the test, and then somebody, I think he might even say Carl Lewis or somebody, one of his competitors, sabotaged him by putting something in his Coke can or something.
What a cop out, man.
Yeah.
No, that was a hard part of my life and career because I had a lot of people I thought were my friends, and it wasn't about 2 years later where all those guys started to come back and they understood everything was cool. The truth was out there, and all I did was just say a couple things in the stand and not meaning to say golds and all that. But
it's also the reason that Ben Weider decided to start the drug testing in 1990 with Olympia and the Arnold and
But John, think about that. I was part of that first one.
Yeah, you were the first drug tested World Championships. Yeah.
Well, the Arnold Classic.
Oh yeah, the Arnold Classic. Okay.
That was the first pro show that was drugged. That was
tested. Yeah.
Tested, and
that was the one. Sean Ray failed the test.
Sean Ray failed, and Samir Banoud, I think.
Yeah, I think a few people failed.
Yeah, and at that time, I placed 7th, right?
Yes.
It was my first show, and I was, John, believe it or not, I was drug-free for Arnold's for about 6 months.
Okay.
And I placed 7th in the contest. And
I got
two guys.
They said you got 5th.
Yeah, I got 5th. After those 2 guys got caught, I bumped up to 5th.
Oh, okay. Who got? Oh, Samir and Sean.
Samir and Sean were ahead of me. So
yeah.
It is funny because I saw a caption of Sean Ray today on Instagram with him and Laura Crevel when they won that in 1990. He's like, sorry, Sean. Win officially.
Right.
But no, I ended up placing 5th. And it was really interesting because the next year I was invited back and I ended up placing 6th in the Arnold Classic. And in 90, 91 and 92, I ended up going back again and placing 5th again.
Now that Arnold was the Arnold was different than the World Championships you did because they didn't get the test back until after the show was over, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's why I got a call from Wayne DeMilia, I don't know, a couple of weeks later or something like that, saying I already heard from Bob Kennedy from Muscle Mag And so he calls me up at home and I said, Wayne, good to hear from you, man. He goes, oh, I bet you know why I'm calling you. I said, oh, yeah, man. I said, I check.
Yeah. Yeah, I felt bad for Mike Ashley because he never got awarded on stage. You know, the
no, that's right, because he won the contest free.
Yeah, right.
But yeah.
So how did they did the urine test for everybody, and then they just didn't get the results. They didn't do it in time to get the results before the show.
Exactly. They weren't prepared for that, which didn't make any sense. I mean, here we are in the universe in 86, we're able to do it in Tokyo.
Right. That's what doesn't make sense. 4 years later, they did it backwards. Right.
That was kind of bizarre how they did that. I think they thought maybe, I don't know, maybe I was under the impression nobody was going to get caught because they weren't going to do anything about it.
Yeah.
But you could tell that some of the guys that were used to doing the steroids were a little softer.
Yeah.
And the funny thing is, John, I got harder. My body adapted much better without them.
Yeah.
And that's why I was very careful on how I used them in the past, man. But
so you didn't use anything for 6 months before the show?
6 months before the contest.
Yeah. Okay.
And what happened, though, was a bit of a backlash with people complaining, and even the judges realized that, look, this is not going to work. So they just completely got out of the way, man.
Yeah. What did you think most of the other guys did? Do you think they did the same thing where did they back off? Not probably 6 months, maybe just a few weeks.
I think a lot of them knew what to do prior.
Yeah.
And I had no knowledge on how to even evade that. So for me, it was, I just got off it completely. I was I was invited to the show, which is great. So I'm going to Arnold. Yeah. Drug free. Yeah. And I still held my own. As a matter of fact, if you look at those shots from 1990, you can see that, the difference in our physiques back then and what they are today is night and day, man. But it was just more flow, more class and everything to it, more free. So I came in pretty tight and hard, and like that, how I looked on that, man.
Yeah.
But
a lot of them probably did like what you said with Ben Johnson. They probably just avoided the oil-based stuff and they did the water-based stuff, and then they were able to get off it. Yeah.
And a lot of these guys were a lot smarter and they knew how to friggin' pass these tests, I suppose, because I didn't know what the heck was going on, man. But